The locker room buzzed with the familiar sounds of post-workout routines, lockers slamming shut, shower water running, and the low hum of conversation between gym-goers. Steam drifted from the shower area, creating a misty atmosphere that softened the harsh fluorescent lighting overhead. It was late evening, and the crowd had thinned considerably, leaving only the dedicated few who preferred to exercise when the gym wasn't packed to capacity. Among them was Liam, a slender man in his mid-20s with dark hair that curled slightly at the ends when damp. He'd been coming to this gym for just under 2 weeks now, part of his New Year's resolution to finally get in shape, as he'd put it to his friends. In reality, it was more about finding a space where he could work through his thoughts while also working on himself. Liam moved through the locker room with the slight hesitation of someone still learning the unwritten rules of a new environment, his eyes occasionally darting around to make sure he wasn't breaking some gym etiquette he hadn't yet grasped. Across the room stood Jake, a regular whose presence commanded attention without him having to try. His broad shoulders and athletic build spoke of years of dedicated training, but it was his easy smile that people remembered most. Jake had noticed the newcomer over the past couple of weeks. It was hard not to. There was something intriguing about the way Liam moved through the gym, determined yet uncertain, like he was constantly having an internal debate with himself. Jake had caught himself watching Liam more than once, curious about the story behind those thoughtful eyes. Tonight, Jake couldn't help but notice Liam struggling with one of the cable machines, his frustration evident as he tried to adjust the weight stack. The machine had a trick to it. You had to pull the pin out at a specific angle or it would jam, something only the regulars knew. Jake could have let it go, could have continued with his own routine, but something pulled him toward the newcomer. "Need a hand with that?" Jake asked, approaching with a casual confidence that made the interaction seem inevitable rather than intentional. "This machine's got a bit of an attitude problem." Liam looked up, slightly startled by the sudden offer of help. Recognition flickered across his face. He'd noticed Jake too, though he'd been more discreet about his observations. "Yeah, actually. Thanks," Liam replied, stepping back to give Jake room. "I thought I was just being incompetent." Jake chuckled, his hands moving with practiced ease as he adjusted the pin. "Nah, it's not you. This thing's been temperamental since I started coming here 3 years ago. Management keeps promising to replace it, but I think they're attached to it now. Like an old, cranky pet." The comparison drew a genuine laugh from Liam, easing some of the tension in his shoulders. "I'm Liam, by the way," he offered, extending his hand. "Jake," came the reply as they shook hands, the contact lingering just a fraction longer than strictly necessary. "I've seen you around the past couple weeks. How's the New Year's resolution holding up?" Liam raised an eyebrow, both surprised and a little pleased that Jake had noticed him enough to recognize he was new. "That obvious, huh? But yeah, so far so good. Though I'm still figuring out half these machines. They should come with instruction manuals. Or you could just ask someone who knows," Jake suggested, a playful glint in his eye that could have been simple friendliness or something more. "I'm usually here around this time most days." Their conversation flowed easily as Jake demonstrated the proper form for the exercise Liam had been attempting. What started as a simple tutorial evolved into a mini workout session, with Jake offering pointers and Liam gratefully accepting the guidance. There was an undercurrent to their interaction, a subtle charge that neither acknowledged directly but both felt, the kind of connection that makes you more aware of your movements, your words, the space between you. As they finished the set, Jake glanced at the clock on the wall. "I usually hit the steam room after my workout," he mentioned casually, though his eyes held Liam's with intention. "Great for muscle recovery and clearing your head. You should join. It's pretty quiet this time of night." Liam hesitated, weighing the invitation. The steam room had always intimidated him a bit, the intimacy of it, the vulnerability. But something about Jake made the prospect less daunting. "I've actually never used a steam room before," he admitted. "All the more reason to try it," Jake encouraged. "Tell you what, finish your workout and meet me there in 20. I promise it's worth it." With that invitation hanging between them, they parted ways to complete their individual routines. Liam found himself rushing slightly, his mind more on the upcoming steam room encounter than on his exercises. He couldn't quite pinpoint why he felt so drawn to Jake. Was it just admiration for someone so at ease in this environment, or was it something more? The question lingered as he went through the motions of his workout, his eyes occasionally seeking out Jake's form across the gym floor. 20 minutes later, Liam found himself standing outside the steam room, towel wrapped around his waist, another draped over his shoulder. He took a deep breath before pushing open the door, a cloud of hot vapor greeting him as he stepped inside. The steam was thick enough that it took a moment for his eyes to adjust, the outlines of the tiled benches gradually becoming visible through the haze. "You made it." Jake's voice came from the corner, where he sat with his back against the wall, a towel his only covering. "Close the door before all the good steam escapes." Liam did as instructed, the heavy door sealing with a soft thud. He made his way to the bench opposite Jake, feeling strangely exposed despite the concealing mist. The heat immediately enveloped him, beads of sweat forming on his skin within seconds. "What do you think?" Jake asked, his voice somehow both amplified and muffled by the enclosed space. "It's intense," Liam replied honestly, adjusting to the temperature and humidity. "But good, I think. I can feel my muscles already thanking me." Jake nodded approvingly. "It gets better once you acclimate. Just breathe through it." They sat in companionable silence for a few minutes, the only sound the occasional hiss of the steam generator. Liam found his thoughts wandering, hyper-aware of Jake's presence across from him. There was something oddly intimate about sharing this space, both of them vulnerable in the heat and minimal clothing. Suddenly, Jake stood up and moved toward the door. For a moment, Liam thought he was leaving, a pang of disappointment surprising him with its intensity. Instead, Jake reached for the lock and turned it with a definitive click. "Hope you don't mind," Jake said, turning back to face Liam. "Sometimes people just barge in, and it ruins the whole vibe." Figure two guys could clear the steam together without interruptions. The statement hung in the air between them, loaded with potential meaning. Liam felt his heart rate quicken, and not just from the heat. "No, I don't mind," he replied, his voice steadier than he expected. Jake returned to his seat, but this time chose the spot next to Liam rather than across from him. The proximity sent a different kind of heat through Liam's body. "So," Jake began, "what brought you to this gym specifically? There are cheaper options in the area." The question broke the tension slightly, giving Liam something concrete to focus on. "Honestly, it was the least intimidating of the ones I looked at. Some gyms feel like they're designed to make newcomers feel inadequate, you know? This place seemed, I don't know, more welcoming." Jake nodded thoughtfully. "I get that. When I first started working out, I felt like an imposter. Like everyone could tell I didn't belong. Took me months to get over that feeling." Liam turned to him in surprise. "You? I would never have guessed. You seem so confident here, like you own the place." A laugh escaped Jake, genuine and slightly self-deprecating. "Years of practice, man. I was the skinny kid in high school, always picked last for teams. Started lifting weights because I was tired of feeling invisible. Or worse, visible for all the wrong reasons." This revelation shifted something in Liam's perception. The image of Jake as the naturally gifted athlete gave way to a more complex picture, someone who had worked for his confidence, who understood what it meant to feel out of place. "What about now?" Liam asked. "Do you still feel that way sometimes?" Jake's eyes met his, surprisingly vulnerable in the steamy haze. "Less often. But yeah, there are still moments. Different contexts, same insecurities. We just get better at hiding them, I think." The conversation deepened as the steam continued to envelop them. Jake shared stories about his college years playing lacrosse, the camaraderie he found in team sports after years of feeling like an outsider. Liam opened up about his own journey, how he'd always been more comfortable with books than barbells, how physical spaces like gyms had always felt like foreign territory where he didn't know the language. "I'm trying to change that narrative," Liam explained, wiping sweat from his brow. "Not just about fitness, but about challenging myself in general. Stepping into spaces that scare me a little. Like locked steam rooms with strangers?" Jake teased, bumping his shoulder lightly against Liam's. The contact sent a small jolt through Liam. "You're hardly a stranger at this point," he countered, surprised by his own boldness. As they continued talking, the physical space between them seemed to shrink. Whether it was the intimacy of their conversation or an intentional shift, their knees were now almost touching, their voices lowered despite being alone in the room. The steam created a world apart, a bubble where the usual rules and hesitations felt suspended. "Can I ask you something personal?" Jake ventured after a pause in the conversation. Liam nodded, both curious and apprehensive. Sure. Are you seeing anyone? Dating, I mean. The question hung in the steam between them. Liam took a breath, feeling the weight of the moment. No, not currently. I was in a relationship for about 2 years, but we broke up last summer. Haven't really put myself out there since then. Jake nodded slowly. Was it serious? The relationship? I thought so at the time, Liam admitted. Looking back, I think we were just comfortable. Safe. There wasn't much spark, I guess. What about you? Jake leaned back against the wall, his profile strong even through the steam. I've had a few relationships. Nothing that stuck. I've always had a hard time with the vulnerability part. Opening up, letting someone see all the parts of me I'm not so proud of. Like what? Liam found himself asking, genuinely curious about what shadows could exist in someone who seemed so self-assured. Jake was quiet for a moment, considering. I'm afraid of commitment, he finally said. Not in the cliché way people use as an excuse. I mean, I genuinely get scared when things start getting serious. I've ended relationships right when they were getting good because I couldn't handle how much it would hurt if it all fell apart. The admission created a new layer of intimacy between them. Liam found himself sharing in return. I've never been in a relationship with another guy, he said quietly, the words almost lost in the hiss of the steam. I've wanted to, thought about it a lot, but never had the courage to act on it. The confession hung in the air between them, charged with possibility. Jake turned to face Liam more directly, their eyes meeting through the steam. Never, he asked softly. Liam shook his head. Never. Not for lack of interest, just fear, I guess, of doing it wrong, of not being enough. Something shifted in Jake's expression, a softening around his eyes. I find that hard to believe, he said, his voice low, that you wouldn't be enough. The space between them had narrowed to almost nothing, the heat of their bodies mingling with the steam. Liam could feel his heart hammering in his chest as Jake's gaze dropped briefly to his lips. For a moment, it seemed inevitable that they would close that final distance between them. Instead, Jake pulled back slightly, running a hand through his damp hair. Sorry, he said, though it wasn't clear what exactly he was apologizing for. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. Liam found himself both disappointed and relieved at the retreat. You're not, he assured Jake. I'm just processing. This wasn't how I expected my evening at the gym to go. That drew a laugh from Jake, breaking some of the tension. Yeah, me neither. I usually just sit in here alone with my thoughts for 10 minutes before heading home. So why'd you invite me? Liam asked, the question direct, but his tone gentle. Jake considered this, seeming to weigh his words carefully. Because I wanted to know you, he finally said. Beyond just seeing you around the gym. There's something about you that caught my attention from day one. The honesty was disarming. Liam felt a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with the steam room's temperature. I noticed you too, he admitted. It's kind of hard not to. Jake smiled at that, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. Look, I think we should clear the steam here, and I don't mean the literal steam, he said, gesturing to the mist surrounding them. I'm attracted to you, Liam. I have been since I first saw you fumbling with your locker combination that first day. But I also respect wherever you're at with exploring this side of yourself. No pressure, no expectations. The directness was both terrifying and exhilarating. Liam took a deep breath, the hot air filling his lungs. I appreciate that, he said. And for what it's worth, the attraction is mutual. I'm just navigating unfamiliar territory here. Jake nodded understanding. We all start somewhere. And hey, a steam room with a locked door is a pretty good place for honest conversations, don't you think? Definitely better than trying to talk by the weight bench, Liam agreed with a small smile. The acknowledgement of their mutual attraction shifted something between them, creating a new kind of tension, anticipatory rather than uncertain. They continued talking, each sharing more about their lives outside the gym. Jake spoke about his work as a physical therapist, how he found fulfillment in helping people recover their strength and mobility. Liam described his job as a graphic designer, the balance he sought between creative expression and client expectations. As they talked, their physical proximity increased naturally, a hand gesture that resulted in fingers brushing against an arm, knees definitely touching now. The steam room had become a confessional of sorts, a place where admissions came easier, where the usual barriers seemed to dissolve along with inhibitions. Can I ask you something else? Liam ventured after a comfortable lull in conversation. Anything, Jake replied, his attention fully focused on Liam. What would you do if I kissed you right now? The question surprised them both, Liam perhaps most of all. He hadn't planned to be so forward, but something about this enclosed space, about Jake's openness, made boldness feel possible. Jake's eyes darkened slightly, his gaze intensifying. I'd kiss you back, he said simply. But only if you're sure that's what you want. Liam considered this, the weight of the moment settling around him. Was this what he wanted? The answer came more easily than he expected. I am sure, he said, his voice steady despite the racing of his heart. The distance between them closed slowly, deliberately. Jake's hand came up to rest gently against Liam's cheek, a touch so careful it made Liam's chest ache with unexpected emotion. Their lips met softly at first, a question rather than a demand. The contact sent electricity through Liam's body, a confirmation of something he had long suspected but never fully experienced. The kiss deepened naturally, Jake's hand sliding to the back of Liam's neck, drawing him closer. There was a rightness to it that Liam hadn't anticipated, a feeling of coming home to a place he'd never been before. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, the steam around them seemed charged with new energy. Okay, Jake asked quietly, his thumb tracing a gentle path along Liam's jawline. More than okay, Liam confirmed, a smile spreading across his face. I think I've been waiting to do that for a long time without really knowing it. Jake's answering smile was radiant even through the steam. Worth the wait, he said simply. They sat together in the aftermath of that first kiss, neither rushing to define what had just happened or what might come next. The steam continued to swirl around them, creating a cocoon that felt separate from the world outside. In this space, possibilities seemed endless, the future unwritten but full of potential. I should probably warn you, Jake said after a while, his fingers now intertwined with Liam's. I'm not perfect at this. Relationships, I mean. I meant what I said about my fear of commitment. Liam squeezed his hand gently. And I meant what I said about being new to this particular kind of relationship. Maybe we can figure it out together? No rush, no pressure. The suggestion seemed to ease something in Jake, a tension Liam hadn't fully registered until it released. I'd like that, Jake said, taking it day by day. As they continued to sit together in comfortable silence, occasionally exchanging soft kisses or quiet words, Liam marveled at the unexpected turn his evening had taken. He'd come to the gym looking for physical improvement, never imagining he might find an emotional connection as well. There was something beautifully symbolic about meeting Jake here, a place dedicated to growth, to pushing past limitations, to becoming stronger. Eventually, the heat began to feel overwhelming, a sign that it was time to return to the world outside their steam-filled sanctuary. We should probably head out before we turn into human puddles, Jake suggested, reluctantly releasing Liam's hand. Liam nodded, equally reluctant to break the spell of their private world. Yeah, I think I've reached my steam tolerance for one night. Jake stood, extending a hand to help Liam up. The gesture was simple but felt significant, an offering, a connection, a promise of support. Liam took it, allowing himself to be pulled to his feet, finding himself standing close enough to feel Jake's breath against his face. So what happens when we walk out that door? Liam asked, voicing the question that had begun to form as their time in the steam room drew to a close. Jake considered this, his expression thoughtful. Well, first we shower and change, because that's just good hygiene, he began, drawing a laugh from Liam. And then, if you want, maybe we could grab a late dinner? Continue this conversation somewhere with less steam and more food. The suggestion was both ordinary and extraordinary, a normal next step that represented something profound for Liam. I'd like that, he agreed. Jake reached for the lock, pausing before turning it. For what it's worth, he said, his voice soft but certain. I'm really glad you were struggling with that cable machine tonight. Liam smiled, a warmth spreading through him that had nothing to do with the steam. Me too, he replied. Best gym equipment malfunction of my life. With that, Jake unlocked the door, and they stepped back into the locker room, leaving behind the steam but carrying forward the connection they'd found within it. As they moved toward the showers, Liam couldn't help but think about the metaphor Jake had used, clearing the steam together. That's exactly what had happened, in more ways than one. The mist of uncertainty that had surrounded his feelings, his identity, his desires, it hadn't completely dissipated, but it had begun to clear, revealing a path forward he was eager to explore. Later, as they left the gym together, stepping into the cool night air, Liam felt a new kind of confidence settling into his bones. It wasn't just about having the courage to kiss Jake, though that was certainly part of it. It was about embracing the unknown, about allowing himself to be vulnerable, about recognizing that some risks were worth taking. As Jake's hand found his in the darkness of the parking lot, Liam knew with certainty that this particular risk, this particular man, was definitely worth whatever challenges might lie ahead. The steam had cleared, revealing something beautiful and unexpected, and Liam couldn't wait to discover what else might be revealed as their journey together continued, one day at a time. Total _char_count, 18,432.